What's up everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Dark Souls. Came back here to Blighttown just for a moment to take care of a few things down here before I finish off the last 3 bosses in the DLC area. So I have lots to talk about this episode, not a ton of time to talk about it, so this episode is going to be quick and dirty, and I might have to leave some of the discussion about things that are going to happen this episode for the next one. That said, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to finally check out where Quaylana is, because I upgraded my Pyromancy Flame to plus 10 finally, and that is the most surefire way I know of to get her to spawn over here.
A mere undead, yet you can see me. Fascinating. I am Quaylana of Izadin. I am not often revealed to walkers of flesh. You have a gift. Are you too one who seeks my pyromancy, like Solomon? Yes, of course. It should be expected. Very well. You shall be my pupil, but to pursue my pyromancy, you must give something up. Are you prepared to do this?
And I'll rifle through what she has to sell or teach us real quick. So like Quaylana said, she set out to teach pyromancy after the Witch of Izalith attempted to duplicate the first flame, and in the process created the warped bed of chaos.
Long ago, I accepted another pupil like yourself. Over 200 years ago, there was a man almost as bungling as you. In your world, he was called Salaman, the Master Pyromancer. The little rascal really made something of himself. Pyromancy is the art of invoking and manipulating fire. But remember one thing. Always fear the flame, lest you be devoured by it and lose yourself. I would hate to see that happen again. Pyromancy is the art of invoking and manipulating
So
fire.
she taught pyromancy
But
to
remember
Solomon,
one thing.
and Solomon in turn is believed to have taught the art of pyromancy to the citizens of Blighttown, which included Laurentius, who's known as Laurentius the Great Swamp. And she is also the NPC that you go to ascend your pyromancy flame. Now further down here, I'm finally going to reveal that illusory wall that I missed my first time down here. We're going to talk to the fair lady, who is quite a tragic character. I can go ahead and take that rusted iron ring off. I also caved and bought the Balder shield from the Crestfallen Knight back in Sen's Fortress off screen, because it is quite a nice shield. I also did a ton of upgrading. And come to think of it, I really thought this out kind of poorly. I should have gone way back. I should have gone straight to Blighttown to kill the bodyguard for the ring right after I joined the Forest Hunter Covenant, and then done the Catacombs and joined the Gravelords, because unless you abandon the Covenant through Oswald of Karim, it counts as a betrayal, which means I'd have to pay a ton to Oswald to absolve my sins right now just so I could go rejoin the Forest Hunter Covenant to betray them and get the ring. So it looks like I'm doing this playthrough without ever once touching the Darkwood Green Ring. Not terribly uncommon for me, but I would have liked to show that off at least. Might be something for down the road, who knows. But the illusory wall is right over here. I thought it might have been further up the steps. Turns out it's not, though. Up here, we're going to talk to Ingi.
Oh dear, what have we here? Are you a new servant? But you have no eggs. No matter. Go along and have audience with our fair lady. I pray that you will mind your manners.
That little bastard is the one who, remember the toxic mist pyromancer we found in the swamp? He is likely the creator of it. Actually, I believe it says flat out he's the creator of it. He is likely the cause of the blight pus, the pus that infects Blighttown. And we can't talk to the fair lady, at least not as we are right now. She appears to be mute, or at least for us she is. The fair lady is one of the most tragic characters in the game. She's blind, she's fused to this immobile spider, she's sickly, she's incomprehensible except to Quelaag, who you kill. She was further debilitated because she sucked the pus out of virulent Blighttown denizens. So she is, again, all alone without Quelaag. She's near death, and the eggs around her can't spawn new life. If you have the old witch's ring, which is one of the starting gifts, I forget the other way you can acquire it, you will be able to talk to her, but she'll talk to you as if you are Quelaag. She's also the Firekeeper and the head of the Chaos Covenant. If you rank up in the Chaos Covenant to level 2, which I think you get by giving her 30 humanity, she opens a shortcut up, which is that wall back there I pointed out. And you need that shortcut for Solaire's quest for the last step of it, and for the Sunlight Maggot. Otherwise, I think you have to open it up from the Izalith side. Now, the boss that we are approaching up here is Quelana's brother, and the only son of the Witch of Izalith. Now, I love bosses like Ornstein and Smo and Flame Lurker because they're just fun to fight, but some of my favorite bosses, as you might have learned, some of my favorite bosses for their backstories are some of the most pathetic, like King Allant, Pinwheel, Ceaseless Discharge up here. They're often pathetic because of whatever happened to them that makes them interesting. Ceaseless Discharge is the brother, like I was saying, of Chaos, or the son of the Witch of Izalith. He guards the altar upon which one of his sister's corpses lies, and you find the gold-hemmed set on it. It's the set that looks exactly like the armor that Quelana was wearing. Taking his sister's clothes will turn him hostile. He doesn't attack you unless you either take her belongings or you attack him directly. He was mutated by Chaos just like his siblings, and from birth he had these sores on him that oozed lava, so his sisters created a ring for him to ease his pain. But he foolishly dropped it. And we will initiate the fight by taking the gold-hemmed robes. There are a couple ways to kill this boss. One just involves fighting him straight up. He doesn't have a lot of moves and he's not terribly difficult. I'll show that off a little bit. One way is kind of exploitative, and it is unnecessarily slow in my opinion. I'm not really going to show that off. The third way is a quick kill, and it's an intended one too. And if you fight him like this is pretty much all you're ever going to see him do, so I'm going to die real quick and show you the other much cooler way you can kill him. Okay, that should be a good point to cut back in. So that's his other attack. He uses it at super long range, and it does a boatload of damage to you. He pretty much just does it if you're trying to outrange him, or if you're trying to do some funny stuff. And he might get another one in up here. No, I hear the effect, but I guess it just barely is not reaching me. But the way you want to execute this little quick kill is you run all the way back to the fog gate after you have his attention. Remember, his aggro resets if you don't take the gold-hemmed set. So if you come back into the fog gate and you haven't taken the gold-hemmed set, you have to be the aggressor again. You have to attack him to initiate the fight. He doesn't just become hostile as soon as you walk through the gate, unless, again, you take the gold-hemmed stuff. But once you're back at the gate and he's followed you, he'll try to make a little jump across the chasm, and one of his arms is weak and withered. So you just take a couple swipes at his good arm, which he's using to just barely cling on to that ledge, and you will knock him right off the ledge and he'll fall to his death. And now that Ceaseless Discharge is dead, the lava that prevents you from venturing deeper into the demon ruins and even deeper still into Izalith is no longer flowing from his open, inflamed sores. And real quick, I might need to cut ahead because I don't think I had a warp point close enough to the DLC. Or in the DLC, rather. I might actually have to run back there. I should probably check that out before I actually start that run back. Oh, I'm glad I did. Well, I would have had to warp to Firelink Shrine to start that run back anyway. But yeah, let's keep going with the DLC. and we will stay put in the DLC area in Ulasil until Manus is dead. Manus being the final boss, who I believe has gone unnamed up until this point. Was he named Independent? I can't remember. Pretty sure he wasn't. Either way, the name is not so much of a spoiler, and we're about to learn a whole hell of a lot more about who he actually is once we pass through this little basin out here. So Ulasil was originally cut from the game due to time constraints, and there was a big event, a big quest chain that was supposed to go on where Dusk, you remember the princess of Ulasil, was supposed to summon you to her kingdom so that you could perform some kind of quest chain. Now I'm going to take a sec to distribute some stat points. I will be right back. And with that out of the way, let's go meet Elizabeth.
Well, look at this one. From what faraway age hast thou come? Thy scent is very human indeed, but not intolerable. Ah, Princess Dusk's savior. Thine aura is precisely as she described. I thank thee deeply for rescuing Her Highness. But Princess Dusk is here no longer, snatched away by that horrifying primeval human. And so I must ask, couldst thou once more play the savior? Thank you. I am Elizabeth, guardian of this sanctuary. Something of a godmother to Princess Dusk. I shall assist thee to my utmost, for I am one with the sorceries of Urasil.
Very, very interesting dialogue there. Almost everything she says.
Thou shalt see further on. An abyss was begat of the ancient beast, and threatens to swallow the whole of Ulasil. Knight Artorias came to stop this, but such a hero has nary a murmur of dark. Without doubt he will be swallowed by the abyss, overcome by its utter blackness. Indeed, the abyss may be unstoppable. Still, I have faith that Princess Dusk may be rescued yet. Thou shalt see further on.
Alright, sorry about all the jumping around. I have one more thing I have to take care of real quick back at the bonfire. I will see you again in a second. Yeah, everything that Elizabeth had to say kind of catches my interest. She knows that we're not from around here, that we're not just strangers in a strange land, but from a different time altogether. And it seems like she knows this because we're human. Like, that's the distinction between the player and the residents of Ulasil. And then, she claims to be the godmother, or like a godmother, to Dusk. And I'm gonna let that one stew for a bit, because I'm still thinking that one over. Still. Even though we see some bipedal mushrooms in the forest in the main game, I really don't think Elizabeth is actually one of those mushrooms, or anything like them. I think she's something else entirely than what she presents to us, because she sells the chameleon sorcery. She likely knows it. She also claims to be an expert in the magics of Ulasil, of which the chameleon sorcery is one. I don't know if she has any darker intentions by not showing us her true form. She does sound super gentle, though. I don't think she has any darker intentions. Coming up here is where we're going to find a shortcut in a little bit. And there's also a little bit of armor up here that I will come back for down the road. I just want to show off where the shortcut actually is. Right down there. It almost looks like you can jump down there and survive, but you can't. I'm just kind of speeding through the forest. There isn't too much to see around here except the stone guardians, or their relatives, and the gardeners, who are kind of like the relatives to the enemies we fight in Darkroot. By the way, this area is Darkroot, if I haven't already said that. You can actually compare screenshots of Darkroot Garden and Ulasil as per the DLC side by side, and you can see a lot of the areas that look exactly the same. This bridge where Calamite comes down and scares the shit out of us is one of those areas, actually, that you can see deeper into Darkroot Forest. Actually, I think this is the bridge that might be overlooking the path to the Hydra, and we will actually be revisiting the basin where we fought the Hydra in later in the DLC when we go to fight Calamite. Oh, come back here, Mr. Lizard. I got sidetracked. So, oh yeah, Elizabeth also talks about the primeval human, and she traces the abyss back to it. The primeval human, by the way, is Manus, and that description, among other things, has led to people believing that Manus is the furtive pygmy, the progenitor of the human race in Dark Souls. Really, really juicy speculation there. That the evidence for that, as we go through the DLC, is going to further mount and mount. And then she also talks about Artorias, who we're coming up to soon. She talks about Artorias, who came to stop the spread of the Abyss, and she says he has nary a murmur of dark, like that's a flaw in his crusade. We know that Gwyn's knights aren't human, Artorias included, so does she mean that he doesn't possess dark, as in a fragment of the dark soul, aka a sprite of humanity? If so, how does that work against him? Are humans less susceptible to the Abyss? I don't think so, because humanity is drawn to humanity. It tries to coalesce back into the one dark soul. Remember, it was fragmented over and over and over again. There was even a unique death animation for dying in the Abyss, come to think of it, where it just kind of consumes you. You sink into it like tar. So I'm thinking maybe she means it figuratively, like Artorias was too pure and didn't know how to properly fight the corrupting influence of the Abyss because he wasn't accustomed to it.
Let me guess. Snatched by a shadowy limb and dragged off to the past? Yes, of course. Exactly what happened to me. We are both strangers in this strange land. But at least now there are two of us. Did you happen across Knight Artorias, the legendary abyss walker from the old tales? Well, if you haven't, it's just as well. He's a colorless sort, if you ask me. So, what did that giant mushroom make you do? Not that I care. It's none of my business. I've little to talk about, really. Oh, you know me. What do I know? I've little to talk.
That's Chester. Chester, I was hoping, would play another piece of dialogue, but I guess that only happens later. He used to use this really cool black Zweihände, but that got cut out of the game. Now we're gonna buff up and fight Artorias. Oh, and let's try that again. But first I have to activate the shortcut. I don't think I activated it last time. I didn't even bother to check. So what happened there was I think Power Within might actually be doing me more harm than good. At least on this fight, because Artorias deals so much damage in one shot that Power Within doesn't leave you a lot of room for error, which is kind of what happened in that first attempt. I got to about 50% health without healing through Power Within, because it drains about 1% of your health every second, I want to say, every tick, but it does give you greatly increased damage and stamina regeneration, so I let that get me down to about half health, and from there, Artorias just one-shotted me, which is a little bit careless on my part, a lot careless in two ways, letting him hit me and letting Power Within get me that low. If I'm just a little bit more careful this time, though, it should work out just fine. Oop. Is he gonna do the third one? No. That's one of the best opportunities to counterattack him when he's doing these spinning slashes in the air. The only problem is he can choose to do 1, 2, or a maximum of 3 of those. And you're really only safe to counterattack him after he's done all 3, because you never know if the next one is going to come out when you're mid-swing or something. Here, I believe he's buffing himself with a version of Power Within that does not drain his health, but does greatly increase his damage. So, oh, shit. Stuck around too long. And he counterattacked my counterattack. So the deal with Artorias is that he made a covenant with one of the primordial serpents, likely Koth, because, you know, Koth leads the Dark Wraiths. He formed a covenant with, let's just say Koth, in order to traverse the abyss and to fight the Dark Wraiths. I think it's likely that it happened like this. This is how I think it played out. Koth's goal is to spread the abyss, the darkness, and snuff out the first flame to begin the Age of Fire. Or the Age of Dark, sorry. He can't do that if Gwyn's loyal knights are interfering, so he sees the opportunity present itself to deal with Artorias. Koth proposes to Artorias a covenant that will allow him to traverse the abyss and fight whatever lurks down here, whether that be the Four Kings, the Dark Wraiths, or Manus, because as we come to find out, Gwyn sent Artorias to Ulasil to investigate the spread of the abyss here, and it's not entirely clear at what point in time the abyss outbreak occurs in Ulasil, whether that's before or after what happens in New Londo. So I think Koth manipulated Artorias into traversing the abyss through that covenant, knowing that Artorias would eventually be corrupted and fall to it. It's possible that he wanted Artorias to become his champion, his Dark Lord, who would usher in the Age of Dark. And we're gonna hear some things from Chester later. I wish this dialogue had played, but I guess it doesn't play until after you beat Artorias. Chester is gonna reveal something about how Manus, who, again, might very well be the furtive pygmy, was unearthed. I believe that Koth tricked Ulasil into releasing Manus, and Artorias travels down into Ulasil to deal with the abyss here. And I think this was all the master plan of Koth, but that's obviously speculation. Also, I didn't point this out, but did you notice something about Artorias' arm, how it was all withered and decrepit? That arm that would normally hold a shield. Something to keep in mind for later. But we are out of time for this episode. Just want to point something out back here. This is a special PvP arena setup that was added to the game for the DLC. You can choose between 3-on-3 battles, 2-on-2 regular duels, and they even have this little plaque back here on the wall that kind of reminds me of the Pantheon on the highest floor in the Nexus in Demon Souls. But that's going to do it for this episode. We're going to get way more into the nitty-gritty of all this talk about the Abyss and the Furtive Pygmy and Manus, and how that all ties together with what we already know in the next episode, where I will hopefully have a lot more time to talk about all this stuff. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take it easy. Have a good one.